so much. Going live. Not sure if it's on, but I believe it is live. It says done redirecting. Hello, good evening, good morning. Oh, mercy. Let's start that recording again. Not quite sure why I did that. Well, I'll say that again. Hello. Greetings from Olympia, Lacey, Washington. I am your host, Kathy Cross Reese, and I am bringing you day 2 of Inherited Property. Now what? I'm going to turn down my cell phone. That tends to happen. I have a duplicate screen where I get to see myself twice. I don't know if I could stand myself, but hello. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm excited to bring you day 2 of the 3-day challenge titled Inherited Property, Now What? Yesterday, we talked about some ditches. And if you looked at my reel, I did a reel today, kind of a very short reel, recapping just what I talked about yesterday. So since I have you here in the room, some of you on Facebook, hello. I just wanted to say the ditches that I talked about yesterday have to do with the probate and inheritance tax. So those are the 2 ditches that I talked about yesterday when it comes to inherited property. Now what? I've decided to create a workbook in which some of you have purchased. Thank you so much. And that workbook costs $7, and all of the proceeds from the workbook will go to the John Redmond Fund. You Are Not Alone. It's a memorial fund. I actually have, I don't know if you see that, but that's John Redmond the fourth. He was 30 years old, and unfortunately, he is no longer with us, and his mother has created a memorial fund, and we would like to start a grassroots, she would like to start a grassroots movement to ensure that this does not happen to another mother or another family for that matter. So when you purchase the workbook, whether you use it in the challenge or you use it outside of the challenge, the contribution is a gift. Your gift is saving lives. So thank you, thank you, thank you, all of you who have contributed to that. Now, going back to yesterday I talked about those ditches and conversations. It's important to have conversations. These are conversations that many of us, me included, myself included, do not like to have. Do not like to talk about what if I'm no longer here? What if you're no longer here? What's the plan? But in reality, it makes sense to do that because you acquire assets along the way, you acquire real estate along the way, you acquire property along the way. And who does not want to receive an inheritance? The Bible says a good man or woman, when it says man, I believe it's both man and woman because he created mankind, leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And so having those conversations, the what if, what can we do, how can we protect ourselves, are very, very important because you want to ensure that whatever it is that you've acquired or whatever you and your spouse have acquired or whatever your parents have acquired, that it does not go into the wrong hands, right? Because if it goes to probate, probate is basically the government or the municipality, the city, determining what happens to the real estate. And in that determination, it costs money to go through probate. And so the legal expenses that are incurred with probate will deplete the equity or deplete whatever property value that you have in place. So I don't want any of you to fall into the ditch of probate. The other ditch we talked about had to do with inheritance tax. Now, inheritance tax can be avoided, and there are ways to do that, but you need to understand what resources you need to find in order to do that. We will go over the resources tomorrow. But today is a day of planning, right? Yesterday, we talked about having that conversation. It's kind of like a warm up. What do you do before a race? What do you do before an activity, exercise? I know this morning when I exercised, I did a warm up. So yesterday was your warm up. Today, we're actually going to create that plan. And using the plan, many of you probably have already heard this acronym is SMART goals. But in this plan, it's got to be smart. So when you make your SMART goal, what's the first word in SMART? If you know it, say it. What's the first word in the SMART goal? What does the S stand for? If you know it, say it in the chat or put it on a Facebook group. S stands for specific. So when you create your inheritance plan, or you know that you will receive or give an inheritance, be specific, especially in real estate. With real estate, you have to have a legal description, at least in the United States, and it's probably the same in other countries, I would presume, is it has to be specific. It can't have the address of the property across the street. Otherwise, how would someone know which property you're referring to? So it needs to be specific. My desire is to have multiple properties and be very specific on who will receive those properties, very strategic in that process. So my question to you is, what specific properties have you identified that you want to inherit or you want to pass on as an inheritance? Be specific. At one time, I had acquired 15 properties, and I had this vision on where each one of those properties would go. And then I realized later that I could do other things, such as create trust, real estate trust. I could do a lot of other things that I didn't know. As I said yesterday, and I've probably, I've heard this probably from Oprah Winfrey, when you know better, you do better, or it's Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. So in this process of making that goal, making that plan, which will be a SMART goal, it has to be specific. So identify those properties. I say properties plural because I'm rooting for you to be a mongrel, not a mongrel. I'm rooting for you to have an abundance. How's that? I like that word better. Mongrel sounds kind of like you're taking over, but we are taking territory. Well, I have a sticker on my hand in case you hadn't noticed. My grandson gave me a sticker as he was leaving the house today. So I just happened to notice as I was swinging my hands around. But specific goal, very specific. Identify which properties. And as I was saying, I kind of had another thought in my head. But as I was acquiring these properties, and I can tell you more stories about what happened with those properties, some of them I still have. But as I started acquiring these properties, I had specifically identified who would get what property. I knew my first daughter would get the first house, second daughter would get the second house, third daughter would. That's specifically how I was doing it. Then I was thinking, okay, grandchildren would get the next. And that is how I had decided specifically how I was going to pass on the inheritance. But later, I realized that there's a better way. As you learn through this process, if there's a better way, go with the better way. Not to say there was anything wrong with the way I had originally decided to do it, but if there's a better way, why not take advantage of it? And so that's what I've decided to do now. I'm going to do it a little differently than I had originally planned. And so the next letter or acronym in SMART goals starts with an M. If you know it, put it in the chat. How would you identify a plan using the M, right? Okay, I don't see it yet. I'm looking in both. I see a word map. No, not quite. Okay, M stands for measurable. It has to be measurable. Another word for measurable is quantifiable. Are you going to leave 2 properties, or are you going to leave 5 properties? You're going to leave 15 properties? I know my friend Yolanda plans to leave properties for her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I mean, that's amazing. I believe she says she has 17 grandchildren. So could you imagine all of those properties? And you could think outside the box. It doesn't have to be one property, one single family. It could be a multifamily unit. It could be a condo. It could be vacant land. It could be a business. Think outside the box. So measurable. How are you going to measure it? And that's your plan. That's part of your plan. So it's specific, it's measurable. So you're going to identify just what you are going to leave or what you're going to receive. The Bible says it's more blessed to give than receive. I want to be able to give more property to my children and grandchildren than my parents gave me. My parents gave me, let's see, my parents gave me 2 multifamily properties and 2 single family properties. So that is 2, 4, 6 properties, right? I believe that's right. I might be counting to 7 properties, left me 7 properties. So I have some work to do because I no longer have those 15 properties. I now have, outside of those 7 properties I have on this side, I have 2, 4. I have 4 properties. So I have a way to go because I have my daughters covered and I need to make way for the grandchildren. And in those cases, I'm thinking either business or a brick and mortar business or multifamily. And I'm probably leaning more toward the multifamily. So you want to measure exactly what it is that you want to leave behind. And maybe you've already inherited property like that, or you have parents that are aging that are considering what to do with their property. I said yesterday, I sat down with a couple, and right now all they have is a single family dwelling. They weren't really thinking expansion and taking territory and investing. They were just thinking single family home. But I want us to think bigger than that. Not that that's small thinking, that's very noble to actually own real estate. A lot of people don't own property, and to be able to pass that on, especially with the markets rising, it's more valuable over time. However, I want you to think beyond what you already have. It's great that you have something in your hand and you can do something with it, but you can also grow. One of my mentors talks about seed in your hand. I heard Miles Monroe saying that in his book. You have to have some seed, right, in order to grow. And part of that seed is starting to set up a plan and actually go out and decide on what it is you want to purchase or what you want to receive from what's already existing in your inheritance lineage. So we said specific, we said measurable. So what does the A stand for? Let me look in the chat and see if someone knows what the A stands for. So we said S was specific. Specifically identify what it is you are going to inherit, whether it's single family, multifamily, be specific. And then measurable, quantify exactly how much you're planning to give or receive. And then what's the A? What's the A? S-M-A, yeah. A, specific, measurable. Anybody have the A? A is, I don't see any answers in the chat. I was just looking to see if someone knew what the A stood for in SMART, in the word SMART goal. Okay, I'll tell you, since I don't see any guesses, attainable. So it must be attainable. You have to be able to attain it. So if you say, okay, I'm going to own the high rise in downtown New York, is that really attainable for you? Is it attainable for someone else? So it needs to be something that's attainable. That's what the A stands for. So we have specific, that's the S. We have M, measurable. We have A, attainable. It has to be something that you can attain. So if, for example, in my case, my father owned multifamily properties and I was expecting to inherit a commercial business, car wash, because that's a desire of mine to own a car wash. So if I was expecting to inherit a car wash, or if I was expecting to pass on a car wash as an inheritance, I'd have to be able to attain it. So if it's not attainable, it's not realistic. It's not realistic for me to attain it. And so we need to consider that. I want to make sure I have the speaker view. Okay, I just let someone in, Nadia. So it has to be attainable. So we said specific, measurable, attainable. So in the SMART goal scenario, what does the R stand for? If you know what the R stands for, in SMART goals for this scenario of inheriting property, now what? Tell me what the R stands for. I'm looking for it. I don't see it. Wait for it. Okay, I'll go ahead and share. The R is realistic. Oh, reasonable. That's close. That's close. But realistic. Realistic is almost like reasonable. It has to be realistic. So something that's real. It can't be an outer space sort of nonsensical notion that you have in mind when it comes to property and real estate. It has to be attainable. Very similar to attainable. It has to be realistic for you. Now, realistic for me is really a car wash because I could purchase a car wash business, but am I going to do that? Is that really realistic in my game plan? Maybe not, maybe not. I know a high rise downtown New York is definitely not realistic for me. So it needs to be something realistic, something that's within your scope or within the scope of the family in which your family of origin. So if your parents don't own any of these assets, then you can't really expect to inherit it. It's not realistic. If you don't own the type of real estate that you want to pass on, it's not realistic. So in essence, you can't put it in your will, you can't put it in your trust because you don't actually own it. You don't actually own it, so it's not realistic. And then what's the last letter in SMART is T. So what does the T stand for? I have anyone that could share what the T stands for when it comes to SMART goals? The T. What does the T stand for? Tangible? No, close. I'll wait another second. T stands for time. So T stands for time. It has to be something that can happen. When you're making that plan, you set that goal, that calendar, you say, I am going to acquire or I'm going to receive this property during this window of time on X date, no later than X date. When you create a will, when you create a trust, there are timeline provisions in that. Sometimes those time provisions are based on the person who is passed away. So upon death, I mentioned yesterday that my father created with his attorney, with the attorney that we went to together that I recommended, he created a death on a deed. I'm not saying the words in sequence I'm just going to say it how I remember it. It's the death deed. So basically it's a deed that states upon his death, the property would transfer by law to my mother's name, and then to me as the youngest daughter, who was also power of attorney for my mother. So it has to be time bound. Something will trigger when it's going to happen if it's something you're receiving as an inheritance. Now, if you're giving something as an inheritance, of course you have to own it. So you're coming up with a plan. In your plan, you identify, I'm going to have these properties in this amount of time. Right now I'm 59. So I am coming up with my plan to acquire more properties for my grandsons, as well as their offspring. Don't know how many offspring they'll have. I'm hoping I'll still be here because my life plan is 100 plus, and I'm over halfway there, by the way. But come up with a plan that has all 5 of those elements: specific, measurable, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. All 5. Just kind of think of it as your hand. All 5 of those that you want to have in your plan. Or I'm admitting someone else, Nadia. Um, so you want to have all of those elements in your plan when it comes to inheriting property. Now, there's another notion when it comes to inheriting property, and it's a C word, kind of like we talked yesterday about conversations, but this C word is commit. This C word is commit. A commitment is something that I'm reminded of a movie that says it was The Color Purple. If any of you have seen The Color Purple, and yeah, I believe Whoopi Goldberg was playing this role, and she holds her finger up and she basically says, "Nothing but death will keep me from it." That's a commitment. Basically, a commitment is something that you would die trying to make sure you accomplish that goal. You're not going to have any excuses that you are not going to achieve that goal. So you will commit to this inheritance plan that you are creating because it's your inheritance plan. You had conversations, that was yesterday. You had those conversations about what am I going to do with this property? How am I, all of those things. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about the resources, because without those resources, it's really going to be hard to put those plans together. Yes, there's YouTube. Yes, there's Google. There's all sorts of ways. But you want to have a subject matter expert when it comes to creating your inheritance plan. Yes, you can do a will on your own. Yes, you can Google that. In fact, my brother-in-law, before he passed away, that's basically what he did. He was in the hospital and his daughter helped him just basically Google a will right before he passed away. And as I said yesterday, if you want to avoid those ditches, there are some provisions you want to make sure you have in place. And a will is definitely one of them. Life insurance is kind of 50-50. It depends on your age, because seniors can age out of life insurance. Can age out of life insurance. I didn't realize that really until yesterday when I had a conversation with an elderly couple that had life insurance and they had to let it go because they aged out of it. Now you can continue to extend and extend, but all the money that you're putting into life insurance at that age, they were told to just put the money in the bank and use that for something else. So there are some things that you can use to protect you from those ditches. Again, we talked about that yesterday, and I just want to bring that back up in case some of you may have missed yesterday. I'm glad you're here. Welcome all of you on the Zoom. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat or put them on Facebook. Either one will work. I'm here to provide value based on my experiences as well as what I've learned throughout my 28 years in real estate. And I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm a designated broker. I happen to be sitting in my office. I've been licensed for 28 years, and I've started teaching, training on some of the things that I've gone through in real estate. And one of the things that I went through is the inheritance piece. I've actually worked with people who were in the process, not quite there. They had in one case in point, I had she's not a client per se, but she's someone I consulted with because we know each other in other spaces. But she called me kind of frantic saying, hey, my mother's about to pass and she owns this house. What do we do? And so I spelled it out step by step on exactly. First, before I did that, I asked some questions. It's important to ask the right questions. When someone's in that situation, they are crying out in desperation for help. They don't know what to do. I have the resources. I understand. I know the process. So why not offer that? Why not offer that? And people will see, you can see people as resources and use them, use subject matter experts. So in this particular case, she called me, texted me, just pretty frantic about the situation she was in. So I asked her some questions. I said, well, what does your mother want to do? Because oftentimes we think we know as the, I just admitted someone else. We think we know what we should do if we are if we are the child. I'll just put it that way. If we have parents and we're adults, we think we know what we should do. However, with my father, I asked him, and he basically told me what he wanted. He wanted me to have the property. That's pretty much where he stopped. But in this particular case, this lady that I spoke to, that was frantic about her mother that was about to pass, she said, my mother doesn't know. My mother is starting to, have dementia. She doesn't quite know. She also told me that her mother is kind of with dementia. For those of you who may not know, I happen to live with my mother who has some signs of dementia, but a person that has, and I'm going off a rabbit trail, so let me bring this back. I promise I'll bring it back. I know I'm going on these trails, but we're going to get back on the road. And so her mother was suffering from a little bit of dementia, but when she was lucid, she said, why don't you live in it or sell it? Because at this time, this lady who was frantic, friend of mine, had not owned a property before. She's been a lifelong tenant. So her mother thought this would be a great opportunity for you to actually own your first, have your first home. So she was kind of torn between living in it or selling it. In either case, she was not the owner. The mother was the owner. So had the mother passed away before provisions were put in place, guess what would have happened? Mother had no will. Mother had no life insurance. Mother owned a property. What do you think would have happened? Well, a couple of things probably would have happened. It would have gone to probate, and probate would have decided at that time how to allocate those funds after they did their searches to see if there's any debts on, all those sort of things. And that takes time. I've even had clients tell me it's taken up to 6 months to get through probate. And if there's still a mortgage on that property, there's expenses along the way. It's those expenses plus the expenses of probate. And so after I asked her those questions and she gave me the answers and she decided. So I asked her, what does her mother want to do? Then I asked her, what does she want to do? So between those two decisions, she decided to live in the property for a while. She wanted to live in the property for a while until she decided, if she could manage living in that property that was quite a bit away, quite a distance from where she worked, because she was considering that. Even though renting versus owning, she had to kind of weigh that cost for her because she still had the expense and upkeep of the house. And I don't recall if it had a mortgage on it. So she had to weigh those different things. But I gave her a step-by-step roadmap on exactly what she needed to do in order to retain that property and to avoid probate, to avoid inheritance tax. And she did it. And she was able to do it before her mother passed, which is the key. That is the key. It has to happen before, unless there is already a will in place, right? If there's a will in place, then you can avoid the probate if the person passes away. So who do you know in that situation? We all know people going through life, senior. I'm a senior now. I get the senior discount. I'm 59. I didn't used to like to say that, but I'm a senior now. So I need to consider what I'm going to do with the real estate that I own and how I'm going to pass that on and avoid the pitfalls or the ditches, if you will, of probate and inheritance tax. So when I say inheritance, that's basically passing on whatever it is. I happen to be talking about real estate, but you could pass on so many things. My father passed on financial accounts to me. You could pass on all sorts of things. If you have assets, you can pass those on. But those have to be managed by certain people in order to make sure it's done correctly. It's not something, again, you can just Google and figure it out. There's a way to do it. And you want to make sure you're doing it the right way to protect yourself. And so who do you know that is in that process? Maybe they have, or you have, maybe you have an elderly parent, they own real estate, had not even had the conversation, had not even considered what to do, because the focus isn't on the things, right? The focus is on the relationship that you have with your family. And so if you have that relationship strong, that is the best place to start those conversations. And if you don't have a strong relationship, then build that relationship up. Because what you don't want to happen is that there be a perception that you are trying to take from the family member. You want it to be clear and upfront that this is going to happen. This will happen if we don't do this. Now, if you're okay with that, then I can't change that. But I believe once a person knows what the ramifications are, then they're better apt to make the right decision. So have those conversations, make those plans, smart goals, make those plans and commit. Commit to what you are going to do. Commit to those action steps. In the workbook, it's action steps laid out. So you commit to those action steps. What are you going to do? Now I want to take a pause and see if there are any questions on those things we've talked about so far. And if there is someone who has a specific question about a specific scenario that they are in right now, or they know of someone that's in that specific situation right now. So whether you're live or whether you're watching in the replay, you can put it in the Facebook group. Yesterday, I mentioned that I have prizes. I have prizes for those of you who have gone live or will go live. I have prizes for going live. One of the prizes is a VIP session. I've decided to do the VIP session at the end of the challenge. So this is a 3-day challenge. Tomorrow is day 3. So on day 4 and day 5, if you look at the workbook, there's 2 more days in the workbook, but you'll have a different Zoom link if you choose to do the VIP session. So the VIP session will have more deep conversations, deeper goal scenarios in which we can partner with together. I can partner with you to help you come up with solutions to those problems. So think about the questions that you have, whether you want to note them now or whether you want to identify them later. I thoroughly enjoy helping people. This is, as they say, my niche is helping people, right? You have a question, Is there a question? Oh, okay. Okay. So I thoroughly enjoy helping people. That's kind of my, regardless of what I'm doing, I am serving. Looks like someone else is being, you want me to admit her? I'll admit her. Okay. Um, I thoroughly enjoy helping people. So think about the people in your life. Maybe it's not in your immediate family. It could be a relative. I didn't know at the time that I went to the appointment yesterday that my friend's husband, well, they're both my friends, but I didn't know he had cancer, all types of cancer. But one cancer they had to remove an organ, but I don't want to get real specific about it. But he he called me and wanted to know if I would meet with him. And I said, well, I'm about to have this challenge and you can learn all about it. He said, no, I want to meet with you one-on-one and I want to go over everything. And so that's what I did. And that's what I can do for you. If that is your preferred method, if you don't want to do the VIP session, and with the VIP, let me clarify on the VIP, because this is a sensitive topic and a lot of people don't like to have these sort of conversations in public, I'm limiting the VIP session to 5 people. So only 5 people in the VIP session. And I'll make a separate post about that, but I think that's important to keep it at a smaller scale. And you can learn from the other people that are in the group, which is great. But I think it's important to just dedicate a separate time outside of the challenge, which is, this is a 3-day challenge. So that'll be day 4 and 5. So those 5 VIPers, and the VIP link will be in the group today. It's a $47 cost for the VIP session. And in that session, I'm going to give those steps that I outlined for my friend who was about to lose her mom. So if you're in that scenario, or if you know of someone, at least you'll have a roadmap, a framework. I think it's important to have some framework on how to manage when things happen. I mean, if I had that before my father passed, I would have probably did things differently, but thank God he had the foresight to do what he did. He didn't have a will and he didn't have life insurance, but he had assets and he took care of making sure those assets would go to the right place in his absence. And fortunately, my mom was still living, or is still living, not was, is still living. So that just made it a lot easier. So think about who needs this and think about the questions that you would have in that situation, because we all have an expiration date. We are not going to live forever. It would be great if we did, but I don't think I want to look at my 200-year-old self, right? I don't think this body can handle 200 years, maybe 100, maybe even 120. I'm just not quite sure if I could handle more than that. If you think you can, that's great. I just don't think that's quite possible. So the VIP session will be on day 4 and 5, $47, only 5 people. Again, only 5 people. If I end up getting a 6th person, I'll just put them on a waiting list and we'll have to have another session, but it won't be for that same amount. $47 is unheard of. So I want to make that ridiculous offer because I just want to get that information out to 5 people. So if it's not you, then who? If it's not you, who? Just let me know whether you want to message me in the group or if you want to send a private Facebook message. If you know of someone, let me know because only 5. And again, those only 5 because not for scarcity's sake, it's for intimacy's sake. Just because it's a lot easier to communicate with a small group of people than it is to communicate with a large group and sharing such sensitive information. So that's the VIP. Now, if you want to go a little higher, like I told you, I went over and I did a consultation one-on-one with this couple, and I did the one-on-one with the friend, even though it was over the phone and texting. I have an offer, and that offer is for a one-on-one. So exclusively, if it's just you and I together, then that offer is, I don't have it in front of me. So right now we're just talking VIP. So the one-on-one, I have to look and see what I put on my sheet to see what I was offering because I don't want to speak in, over that. So I'm just going to deal with what I have in front of me. So I'm excited to just share all of this with you and I go higher. Yay, I like that, Nadia. I just want to share this with you because I just think about mentorship and it's so important to have mentors. And in whatever industry you're in and you look and you seek out people, you want a mentor, you want someone to come alongside of you to be able to kind of show you the ropes. I know in this particular industry I'm in real estate, when I look around at some of the youth coming in, I started to see that there wasn't much mentorship. That's why I started doing the rookie realtor. I was doing all of those sort of things to just train new brokers on building relationships because relationships are so important. So when you look at inherited property, think about those relationships that you already have in place. And maybe some of those relationships are a little fractured. So if those relationships are fractured, then go back to day one and look at those conversations. Look at the workbook. What are the conversations you need to have with the people you love? Maybe you haven't told your family what your plans are. Maybe you haven't said, hey, I plan to purchase blah, blah, blah. I plan to leave XYZ with you, and I would love if you would keep it in the family's name. Now, whatever your stipulation is on it, your specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound event is, make sure other people know. It can't be a secret. Secrets, I think secrets are the enemy's way of stealing, killing, and destroying what you have. So if you don't want what you have to be stolen, then let it all out. Let it out in the open. Have those conversations. Let people know in your life that you care about what your plans are. And maybe, just maybe, it's someone that's not even in your family. You can have people that are orphans. You can have people that are grafted into your family. I have people that I know that call me mother. They call me mom. And I have people that I call mom. So it doesn't have to be your natural family. So think outside the box when you're talking about inheritance. Because who knows, someone might be leaving an inheritance for you. If you pray and ask God, hey, God, I'm looking for an inheritance. You think he won't answer you? Well, he answers me. Maybe, maybe you won't answer me. No, just kidding. But that's something that you could ask for. Maybe things are looking kind of bleak in your future when it comes to inheritance. You can change that. This is ground zero. You're laying that foundation for that inheritance. You can be the start of what comes of the next generation. You can leave that legacy for your children's children. So think about that and think about what it is you want to create because God gave us the ability to create, right? And he creates with us, right? Co-create. So what is that plan? Write it out. What is it? Becca, write the vision and make it plain, right? So write it out. Write it out. Put it in the book. What is it that you want to see happen when it comes to inheritance? What is your plan? What are you planning to leave behind? Whether it's for your children or your children's children or someone that's been grafted into the family. I can think of people that I really admire and aspire that maybe, just maybe, I need to consider them in this plan. Maybe. And maybe there's people I admire as mentors that I would love to receive an inheritance from. And just like, is it Elijah, right? He said, I want a double portion of what you got. I see you out here doing all these kind of miracles, and I want what you have. So let's think beyond real estate. And you might not be a kingdom person. But I'm thinking that whether you are a kingdom citizen or not, these principles work for the non-believers. These principles work as far as receiving an inheritance, right? It doesn't have to be just real estate. It can be so much more, so much more. I'd like to do the Elijah one, really. I just thought about that. I'd like to get the double portion of what some of my mentors have. I really would, because I see them very successful, and not in a sense that I want to have what they have. I want what is for me like what they have, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I said the right words the right way, but I admire people that do things with ethics, with integrity, with love. I admire that. And so when I see that, I want to do things that way too. I see mentors in the industry and I want to do things that way too. And that's why I'm doing this for you. Because the mentors that I have in front of me have done things like this that are amazing. And just within my little scope, I can do something amazing too. And I believe you can do something amazing too. You can grow your plan, you can create an inheritance, you can give an inheritance. And you don't have to wait until someone dies. When my father decided to pass on his property to me, he was still living. So don't think the person has to be deceased to have an inheritance. The person can still be alive. That's the joy in it. They're still alive. So they get to see the benefit of you enjoying what they've left for you or what you've left for them. You get to see that. You get to see the joy in that. You also get to do a little testing, a little bit of testing. So what I mean by that is you can pass on, yes, you can pass on something like a college fund to your grandchildren. I just heard my client couple friends say this yesterday. They passed on a college fund as an inheritance to their grandchildren as a test. And they quickly discovered that they wanted to spend it all on everything except education. That was their test. That was their test. They just wanted to see, can I trust you? Can I trust you? Right? Can I trust you to see if you will take what I'm giving you and use it in the way that I've designed it for you to use? And they found out quickly that the kids just wanted to blow it all on everything, but they kept calling saying, can I? Can I? But the grandparents had a stipulation on it, on those funds. This is a college fund. That means it's for college, books, tuition, room and board, right? Not food and snacks and travel. That wasn't the intention. So you can test this out. You can test out an inheritance, right? On a family member, right? You can test it out. You have those stipulations that you design, that you create in your plan, right? You figure that out and then test it out. I've actually kind of done that with my children, but I think I haven't set it up in the framework in which I just saw and heard it delivered. But I've learned a lot from that couple. I believe you can learn from your clients just like I'm learning from them. They're learning from me. It's reciprocal. It's like the law of reciprocity. It's great because value given, value received. So what is it that you can give? What is it that you can give as an inheritance to someone while they're still living, right? Whether they're family or not, you can, it's almost like a gift. It is a gift. What you've given those of you who signed up for the workbook, you've given a gift of life. And for those of you who missed the very beginning of this, and I'm gonna try not to cry. This is a young man who unfortunately is no longer here. He had a good life ahead of himself, I would say. His mother would say. But but he chose not to be here anymore. And he felt alone because that's the name of the fund. He actually passed away alone. And there's a lot of young people, unfortunately, I believe, that are in this state of either mental health issues or financial issues, or just, I call it the lost generation, because they were raised understanding godly principles, yet they are lost. And there's a foundation to help in that case, that no one feels alone and that there is prevention for suicide. And so that's a massive movement that is kind of in the groundswells that's coming from your donations, your gift of purchasing a workbook. So if you know someone who would like the workbook, they can use it for, I see someone texting me, a workbook that you can use it for yourself. Great. It's a great resource tool that you can use. If you listen to the challenge with the workbook, you can actually add some nuggets in there that I did not put in the workbook. And I intentionally left spaces open so that you can create your own ideas and you can write down some notes from what I've said, because it's not about me, it's about you and what you want to create and what you want to receive. I didn't really ask for the inheritance that I received. Consciously, I didn't think I did, but in reality, I think I thought about it the whole time, because my father would take me to these properties and he would say things that I would kind of like not really pay attention to. Like, you need to listen, daughter, because one day you're going to have to do this. He would say things like that. And why am I going to have to do it? It's not mine. That's a child mentality, right? I had the child mentality. I don't know why, but he would say those things that now I can look back and say, oh, wow, that's why. That's why he said that. Now I understand. Now I understand, it makes sense. So you don't know what impact you're making on someone's life. Right now, those of you who purchase the workbook, you're making an impact on someone's life, because the mother who lost her son wants to make sure that that does not happen to another mother, and that no one feels alone. Our young adults, no one feels alone. Now, how is that going to happen? Don't know. It's a groundswell. With prayer and with action, something's going to transform and lives are going to be saved. And it might not sound like a lot of money, but it will change lives. So thank you. And if you know someone who can benefit from either the workbook or the contribution and the purpose behind the workbook, please share the link. Invite them to the Facebook group. This group will be live for 5 days, but the 2-day VIP session will be a separate Zoom link and it will not be posted on the page. So if you're interested in being one of those 5 people for the VIP session, I will run them at the same time, which will be 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I just thought that would be a nice ending to the challenge. Instead of running a bonus session, I'll just do the VIP session. And for those who want to continue to listen to the replays in the Facebook group, they'll be on until day 5. And I'm thinking what day 5 is, because I'm just Friday, so tomorrow's Saturday. I guess it's Monday. So Monday at midnight is when the recordings of this group will go down. I had to kind of do my weeks in my head. I usually start my challenges early in the week, and I decided to push this later in the week because I was out of town. Anyway, you don't need to hear all that. So I will have the VIP session at 6:30 starting on Sunday night. So Sunday night and Monday night, 6:30 VIP. Again, only 5 people, $47. And tomorrow I'll talk more about the one-on-one opportunity and what that cost is. But I just want to share my experience, my story on inherited property. Now what? I am one, and maybe you are one too. And maybe you will be one, right? Maybe you will be one, or you'll start the foundation, because again, you can always start anew. Doesn't have to be real estate. It could be other assets. It could even be something intangible, such as a double portion, right, of that blessing. Do you know in the stories that we hear, or maybe if you read in the Bible, how the older people always bless the younger people? They blessed them. And then what is the guy, I can't remember his name, that ate his brother's soup? He stole his birthright. I think it was, I'm getting the names mixed up. I think it's Esau, Jacob and Esau. I can't remember the names, but there were two brothers. One was hairy and one was not. One was a game hunter and the other was a cook. So he cooked some good soup, and he knew that he was not, it was Jacob and Esau. That's it. So Jacob was the thief, if you will. He was the thief and the liar who stole his birthright, stole Esau's birthright by cooking some soup and tricking his father with a hairy piece of animal to, go up to dad and get the blessing, right? He got the blessing. And so the father knew something was strange. He was like, you got back mighty quick. I thought you were going to go fix me something, but man, you captured it, you cooked it, that was quick, man. That was quick. So he's touching his hairy arm. He's like, well, okay. So he blesses him and he gives him the blessing. And so in those stories, we hear about how you can inherit those blessings and they can't be taken, right? So Esau comes in, he finished hunting and he made the soup and he brings it in and he brings it into his father. And his father's like, Esau, you were just here. I just blessed you. And the father is like, well, who was that? I thought that was you. And so Esau's distraught. He's like, what? Father, bless me too. Bless me too. And so the father's like, I'm sorry. Your brother took your blessing. Or I don't know if he said your brother took your blessing, but he says, the blessing's already gone. I've already blessed him. In fact, I blessed him. He's going to be over you. Right? I mean, that is, when I hear stories like that, it's just incredible how you can pass on a blessing as an inheritance, and that traveled throughout the entire life. So the father was not able to bless him like he blessed Jacob, the liar, right? Wasn't able to bless him like that. So when you think about inheriting property, think about those other ways that you can receive an inheritance, how you can be an inheritance and share an inheritance. Doesn't just have to be money, doesn't just have to be property. Yes, I know a lot about property and I will share that with you and I will spell it out step by step. I'll give you the resources tomorrow on how you can connect with the right people to do exactly what you need to do to get inherited property or to pass on inherited property. So I'm reaching the end of my time. I want to see if anyone on the Zoom wants to come on the screen. Anyone wants to come on the screen and say a big hello or anything like that as we close out? We got like 1 minute. 1 minute. We'll start with you, Miss Nadia. You want to say a quick hello, a shout out?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Katie, for this information. I'm already veteran.
Veteran.
I already know, yes, how and what is there, because I know, I just not so long ago I put all of my will to our son. So I'm learning a lot from you, and thank you for this information. This is so valuable, because when you are doing in the process and you have to do it before, already not too late, for
right.
child to get, not the bank to have everything back. So kind of, yes, think before you're stepping out. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Catherine. I see you say wonderful content. If you'd like to come on the screen, you're welcome to come on the screen before we go. I'm gonna look at the chat. Thank you so much, Rachel. I see that. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate, driving. Oh yeah, you definitely don't want to do that.
Drive safe, Rachel. We
Yes,
need you.
yes, we do. We do. So thank you, ladies, for coming, and I will see you tomorrow at 6:30.
I just posted the link of book on the Facebook
thank you.
chat as well. So guys, if you would like to contribute and to help, so you are more than welcome,
Yes.
just because we have to
Yes.
save lives.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
see you tomorrow at the same
All right.
time on the same place. Bye.
Same bat time, same bat channel. All right.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye. Bye.